you guys? Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. It's been a hot minute once again, but I'm getting back into my YouTube game for the new year. So my most previous video I did was for the Gymshark Black Friday sale, which all of you that use my code, I appreciate you more than you know, and you can still use my code and be entered into my monthly giveaways as well. It's code Michelle M. On the Gymshark site, it'll get you 10% off as well. So on that video, I got a comment saying to do more book videos since I started my intro in front of my little bookshelf here in my office. And if you follow me on Instagram, I post a lot of book content on there as well, because who doesn't love book talk? I love a good book, a good read, and I recently got back into reading again since I was younger. So I know my videos are mostly fitness related, but I wanted to do a little book update video because I think it's fun. So if that's something you're interested in, this is where fitness and books are gonna come together on my account. So get into this. So this is obviously the first book related video that I've done on here, so I'm not gonna do anything crazy, do any reviews, but I'm gonna show you guys what I've read so far, what I rate them, my top books that I recommend from 2023, and then my physical TBR. So this is my shelf here. Obviously she's not completely full, but I am clearly into a lot of dark romance and a lot of fantasy. Those are my top books. So those are my favorite genres. I can tell you my favorites for each, but I have read almost all of these books. So getting into that, and under the tree for Christmas, I'm seeing some suspiciously book-shaped presents. So I think my TBR is gonna be a little longer. First and foremost, I'm going to tell you what I'm reading right now. So I'm finally starting Crescent City. I purposely waited a little bit. I've had it for a while because I wanted to wait till it got closer to my dog is eating my tripod, until it got closer to the release of the third book, because I hate waiting and I'm impatient. So I have both books here. Just started the first book. I'm a little over 200 pages in, or I think almost 300 pages in, but I do really like it so far. I'm excited. I already pre-ordered the third even before reading this, but just wanted to wait a little bit because, like I said, I'm impatient, and I know that the second book ends on a big cliffhanger, and I know things are going to start tying together. I just don't have any spoilers yet, thank God. That's the other thing too, is I won't talk about any spoilers on here. I'll just tell you what I think of the books. Okay, so let's talk fantasy. So I, of course, am a big Sarah J. Maas girly. Who isn't? I love it. She was what got me back into reading again. Like I said, I used to read so much when I was younger, and just recently started again in like May. So I think I've read a little over 50 books since then. But ACOTAR, of course, is what I started with. So I wasn't into the first book right away, very quickly, but as I got through it, and then of course we got to the second book, and it's amazing. ACOTAR is still my #1 series. I don't care if people say it's basic or that's basic. It's good, and I loved it, and it did get me back into reading and made me love continuously reading more books. So ACOTAR just stays my #1, and of course Court of Mist and Fury stays #1. Just so good, and if you haven't read it and you've been thinking about it, do it. I will try to corrupt everyone into reading any Sarah J. Maas book, but I will always say start with ACOTAR. So that's my favorite. Then, of course, I read Throne of Glass. I didn't read them in that order, but I did read Throne of Glass. Some people are torn between their favorite being Throne of Glass or ACOTAR. Hot take. I did not get into Throne of Glass until maybe the fourth book, until Heir of Fire. Now, I did read The Assassin's Blade first, which I know there's maybe like 3 different ways to read it. I read Assassin's Blade first. I stand by reading Assassin's Blade first. So many people say not to, and if you started not reading it first, you're gonna have a different opinion, but if you read it first, you know, that's the way to go. That's what to do. And it's because it just ties into so many other things that are going on later, and I feel like it gave you way more of an emotional impact. I just 100% start with Assassin's Blade first. I know everyone's going to tell you their own opinions on how to start with, but start with Assassin's Blade first. And Kingdom of Ash will destroy you. Anyways, but There's the tandem read as well for Empire of Storms and Tower of Dawn. So what that means, if you don't know, obviously, is they are two different books, but they're going on at the exact same time, but split between two different characters and different point of views of different characters. So they're going on at the same time, and I did the tandem read, so there is a sheet that you can print out that tells you when to switch books, but it took a long time because they are long books, but it's definitely worth it, especially because I feel like if I read Tower of Dawn on its own, it would have been hard for me to get through because I just wouldn't have been as into it. But when you do the tandem read, it makes it very worth it. So if you do that, if you do want to read Throne of Glass, I definitely recommend doing that. And if you're like me and it took you a bit to get into the books at first, then just stick through it because it does get better and makes it so worth it. And like I said, I just started Crescent City, so I can't give a huge opinion on it, I guess. But like I said, I do really like it so far. It is very different because it's more of a modern world fantasy, which is different from obviously a lot of other fantasy books. So it's different, but I like it. I'm liking it so far. That's all I can really say about it. I'm excited to get to the third one or get to the second one so I can see what everyone has been talking about, but can't wait either way. So next book, of course, is Fourth Wing. Now, love Fourth Wing, love her. So good. I do have the special edition as well because, of course, I needed it, and I have little baby Tarn here. I'm very bad at pronouncing everything in all fantasy things, so anyways. But really loved Fourth Wing, highly recommend, especially if you're getting into fantasy too. That's why I say ACOTAR is a good one. If you're getting into fantasy, I think Fourth Wing is the same thing. Iron Flame just came out on November 8th. I finished that and I am still not over it. Very upsetting. Still a good book though. We have to wait about a year for the next one. Upsetting. But those are my top recommendations for fantasy, of course. I also did read the Shatter Me series, which is fantasy. In my opinion, I was not a huge fan of it. So many people are obsessed with Shatter Me, and it was good. I read it, I finished it, but I don't know, it just didn't give me the vibes I was looking for, and people said it was fantasy, but it gave me more dystopian vibes. I don't know, I wasn't as big a fan of a lot of people, but I read the 6 books in the series. I didn't read the novellas, but they are super quick reads. I literally finished all 6 of these in a week. They're such quick reads, so that made it a little bit easier for me to get through them, but I don't know, to each their own. Same with Divine Rivals. Again, I feel like this is a hot take. So many people were obsessed with Divine Rivals, and I was so excited to read it, but it just didn't do as much for me as I wanted it to. However, not saying I didn't like it. Same with Shatter Me, not saying I didn't like it, and I'm going to read the next book of the Divine Rivals, which I believe is Ruthless Vows, that comes out on December 26th. Still gonna read that. I liked it enough to read the next book, so we'll be doing that, but just my opinion, I wasn't a huge fan of it. Again, I didn't really know what to expect. Half of these books I got without even knowing what they were about. Just love a good surprise, but not saying I didn't like it. It's just not what I expected, and it took me a bit longer to get through it because of that. Now let's get into dark romance, one of my favorites, of course. So I kind of have a whole dark romance section going here, but Haunting and Hunting Adeline are definitely my tops. Those are my first dark romance books, actually. I read a Colleen Hoover book right before it, and then I was like, what the fuck am I doing? Never going back. Which I did like Colleen Hoover for a little bit. Since I started branching out to other authors more, I could not imagine reading her books anymore, but that's just my opinion personally. Everyone has theirs, but that's mine. So Haunting and Hunting Adeline, they're very dark, especially when you get to Hunting Adeline, but I just think they're so good. And my thing with dark romance is they're either good or they're not good, in a sense where I personally like a good plot. I don't like to read just all smut, at that point, just watch porn. If that's what you want, that's good. That's just me personally. I need something that keeps me going and keeps me invested in the story. And Haunting Adeline was the perfect mix for all that. I did read Satan's Affair afterwards. You can read it before, but didn't like it as much because it's very different from Haunting Adeline. It's a little side story of one of the other characters, which I believe we're getting another book on, which I'm excited about, but don't necessarily need to read it to read Haunting and Hunting Adeline, but I threw it in the mix because it was related, and I just love those books so much. They are really good dark romance books, but they are dark, and same goes for any other dark romance. Read the trigger warnings because it can get pretty intense, but I do really like H.D. Carlton. I feel like she does really good writing. That makes sense? Anyways, this is why I read, I don't write. And then I also read Does It Hurt by H.D. Carlton, which again, I really liked because the spice, very good, but there's also a good plot. Like, I think with these books, she did such a good job at writing a really good plot that keeps you, like, invested, guessing what's going to happen next, like, still makes you want to read more, while also having some good spice going on, a good romance story. So we love that. And that's why I really liked her books, because all three of those books did it for me. Like I said, Satan's Affair is a bit different, but still good to read, and it's like a super quick read. I think it's less than 200 pages, so I read it in like 2 hours. It was really easy. Then we go on to the Lords series, which is super exciting. We just got Carnage in October, which is still part of the Lords series. So first it was these 3 books. So we have The Ritual, The Sinner, The Sacrifice. Again, read the trigger warnings on all these books. And they are longer books. Sometimes you think they don't need to be this long, but it's a kind of a really quick read, to be honest. And like I said, the plot is decent in these, but I just like the writing in them. Like, the plot isn't as good as Haunting and Hunting Adeline, and there is a lot of spice and a lot of very intense spice. But I just think the writing is good enough that it kept me wanting to read more. So I did really like these books. If I had to reorder my favorite ones, which you don't have to read them in order, they can all be standalones, but the stories kind of intertwine. Same with the Twisted series, which I'll get into. But The Sinner is probably my least favorite, Sacrifice, my favorite, and then The Ritual would probably be second. But I just really liked those. And again, read the trigger warnings because those ones are a bit more intense, just in a different way than Haunting and Hunting Adeline. I do want to talk briefly about what I do not like. So my opinion, especially with dark romance, so like I said, the whole spice aspect, spice to plot ratio, for me, I just like need them to be equal. I need a good enough plot. But also, reverse harem is just not my thing. You know, like, I don't know, I like it. I feel more invested in the characters and, like, the story of what's going on when it's, like, the guy is, like, touch her and you die type of thing, and, like, no one else can have you type of thing. So when it's reverse harem, it just, like, doesn't have the same effect for me, and I don't know, I'm just, like, not a huge fan of that. Some books that I've read here have gone into that, and I just don't like them. For example, without any spoilers, once again, Credence. We're starting with that because everyone loves Credence, everyone raves about it. I literally hated this book. It was so weird for me. It was so hard to get through, and I just, like, the plot wasn't there. Just the whole dynamic was weird. Not a fan. The ending was awful. Just my opinion. You can have your own opinion. If you love it, that's totally fine. Not bashing you for it. No, not for me. And that is a reverse harem as well. And then same with Den of Vipers. Again, another one I feel like you either love it or hate it. I liked it at first, and then it got to the point where, again, reverse harem, and there was just no plot. Like, it was way too long. It did not need to be over 600 pages. It could have been over in 300. Way too long. I started hating the main character by the end of it. It was just probably one of the only books that I did not finish, which I've never not finished a book. It's just the way my mind works. I need to finish it. But if I was going to not finish a book, it would have been this one or the next one that I'm going to bring up. But again, just my opinion. But if you like reverse harem, or if you like a lot of spice, you don't care about the ratio of plot to spice, like, you'd probably love these books. And that's totally fine. But just my opinion, not for me. Same with Court of the Vampire Queen. Again, I heard really good things about this. I didn't know what it was going to be about going into it. And at first, Spice started off page 2. I was like, all right, getting into it, that's fine. But again, not really any plot. Reverse harm, just not my thing. And it was, again, longer than it needed to be. Not a fan of it. Not a fan, just not my thing. So that's just my opinion on that. But do you? You know? And we have kind of a mix between romantasy and dark romance here, or fantasy and dark romance, with A Touch of Darkness series, which is by Scarlett St. Clair. And I don't know if it's because I read it after I read a book that I hated, so like I loved it even more. I loved A Touch of Darkness. I heard good things about it. They were super quick reads, and it just really did exceed my expectations. It had a good plot. I really liked the characters in it. It had some humor. It had a good spice line going on. I just really liked it, and I thought it was only going to be these 3 books, but there's a 4th coming out in, I think it's April, May, March, I don't know, but ended on a big cliffhanger, FYI, so, but I'm super excited for the 4th book, and I really liked that. It exceeded my expectations more than I thought. And below it we have the Souls trilogy, which is Her Soul to Take, Her Soul for Revenge, and Soul of a Witch. Really liked the first book. The second book was okay, and the 3rd book I absolutely hated. It was unnecessary. I don't really know what I'd rate the series overall, but that is more like monster romance, dark romance type of thing. I thought it was going in a reverse harem direction, which I was a little worried about, but they are not. But that one was decent. I just thought the plot needed a little more. It started to get repetitive. I just started to fall out of it a little bit. I'll also briefly talk about the Never After series because I do have all of the books here. I've only read Hooked so far. They're all standalones, and I think they're like recreations or retellings of fairy tales. So like I read Hooked, and that's supposed to be like Peter Pan, Wendy type of thing. And I absolutely loved Hook. I thought it was great, really liked it. Great book. So I'm excited to read the rest of them. I've heard good things about Scarred as well, and I'll be reading that next in the series. I'm just not reading them in order, but I did really like that too. I did also read the There Is No Saints, or There Are No Saints and There Is No Devil. That was really good too. Those are good quick reads. Did enjoy them, but just like so-so, but I think they're good reads and they had a decent plot, so. Now also, it's hidden behind here, but we have The Serpent of the Wings of Night. I think it's the Crowns of Nyxia duology. I'm not sure if there's going to be a 3rd book. I think by the way the 2nd book ended, there is. But another one that I really enjoyed, it's a good fantasy book with good plot. A lot of people compare it to like the adult version of the Hunger Games, because it's like vampire Hunger Games, but I really liked it. Thought it was great. Again, plot, spice, good romance story, just it checked all the boxes, you know what I mean? So that's another one I would always recommend when it comes to fantasy. I'll get into my TBR after, but I did read The Stars Are Dying as well. Loved that book. I can't wait for the 2nd one. Again, another one that just like exceeded my expectations, and it gave me ACOTAR vibes in a way with certain things without giving anything away, but I just really liked it. I thought it was such a good read, so I definitely recommend that one. I've been seeing it recently, so listen to the good review. Okay, lastly, we have the Anna, I don't know how to say her last name, I'm bad at pronouncing things, but we have her books. So I have the whole Twisted series, and then the King of Sin series, all the books that are out now, which is only 3. So I read the Twisted series first. I liked it. I really liked Twisted Love, and then as you kept going, which they're all standalones, all these books, but they're intertwined together, so same characters in it, but as it went on, it just started getting so repetitive and like the same type of things, and it just wasn't holding me, like the plots weren't holding me. So, and I liked the characters, but like not enough, you know what I mean? It was like the first book was really good and then it just started losing me. So that was unfortunate, but I finished it. I can say I read it, it's done, whatever. When you get to King of Wrath, I liked it. thought it was pretty good. It's the same type of writing as the Twisted series, but different characters, so in sort of different stories, but read King of Wrath, didn't mind it. It was okay. Got to King of Pride. I did not really like King of Pride. That just gave me Twisted series vibes where I just didn't like it. I couldn't really get through it. But then I got to King of Greed, which is the most recent one that came out in October. And I loved King of Greed. It was very different from the other stories that went along, or the other way that she has written everyone else's stories in all these books. So I really liked King of Greed, and that made me want to read the next book. I think it's King of Sloth that'll be coming out. That's in April. I'll probably still read that because it would bother me not to. But I liked King of Greed enough too that I was like, okay, I'll give that next book another shot. Okay, now I will quickly go over my TBR. I could talk about books for so long. I absolutely love it. So if you guys do like hearing me ramble about books, I would be happy to make more of these videos mixing in with my fitness content. But to go with my TBR, so obviously I'm currently reading Crescent City and still have to read the second Crescent City, and that'll be in time for the next one that comes out on January 31st. I got the Walmart special edition, so I believe, actually I won't say, well, not that it would spoil anything, but I got that special edition with those bonus chapters. So I will also be reading Divine Rivals soon. It's, December 8th? That comes out December 26th. I'll probably still be reading Crescent City, so I'll read that next. It's Ruthless Vows. I already pre-ordered it, so that'll be probably what I read after I finish the 2 Crescent City books, depending on how close it is to the next Crescent City coming out. I've been reading a little slower now that I have a puppy, and it's like having a child. I can't leave her alone for more than 2 seconds, so it's cut down on my reading time a little bit, which, love her, but you know, I also love reading. Anyways, so I also have Daughter of Darkness here. Heard really good things about this too. I heard it's spice, it's fantasy, maybe some dark romance. I hear different things about different books all the time. Again, I have no idea what it's about, but on my TBR. So I'm excited to get to it, along with Twisted Devotion here, which is one of the first books that I ordered when I started getting into dark romance. It's been on my TBR for a while, so I do need to get to it. So again, yes, it's a dark romance. No idea what it's about. Don't know what half these books are about that are on my TBR. And I also have Archer's Voice as well. Again, see it everywhere. I know this is very different from fantasy or dark romances, so I know I'll probably shed a tear at some point, but I just feel like I have to read it because, again, it's a book that I see everywhere, always recommended, so I will be reading that at some point as well, just working my way through my TBR. Same with the whole rest of the Never After series. So I still have 4 more books. I still have Scarred, Wretched, Twisted, and Crossed to read. Those are standalone, so I'll probably mix them up in between so I can switch up what I read. And I also have the King of Battle and Blood duology, so it's King of Battle and Blood and Queen of Myth and Monsters. I've heard a lot of good things about King of Battle and Blood. I saw it briefly, and then I didn't really know much about it, and so I have recently started seeing it more again all of a sudden, so now I'm excited for reading that. And then I also have the Dark Olympus series by Kate Roberts, which I am a little nervous about because she is the same author as Court of the Vampire Queen. I think I ordered these all in the same order. I heard really good things about the Dark Olympus series, but I am a little scared after reading the Court of the Vampire Queen, so I'm hoping it exceeds my expectations considering I have all 5 books, so fingers crossed on that one. Athena is gonna join for a minute. She is our 10-week-old Cane Corso. But anyways, so she doesn't eat my tripod. Lastly, I have the From Blood and Ash series. So I'm super excited about that. I only have the first book right now because I just didn't order the rest. I wanted to see how I liked it, but I've heard like good and bad things about it. So I don't know, I feel like I'll like it though. It's kind of long for the first book too, so if I do like the first one, I will be purchasing. So yeah, that is my TBR as of right now. Like I said, under the tree, it looks like my boyfriend has put 12 books for me to open, so I'll have 12 more to add to the TBR, but I'm excited about the ones that I have now. That is my little book talk for you today. Obviously, other videos will be shorter than because I'll just talk about certain other books, not all of my books. But I hope this was a little entertaining. Maybe it gave you some other read ideas. But if you guys do like this, I can definitely do more videos like this. So thank you guys for watching. I will up my fitness content as well, especially with the new year coming up. So let me know what you guys think, and I will see you in the next video.